What's up, guys? It's Mario from Highlander TCG, and I'm come to give you guys my Uchu deck profile in Nova Center. So the reason why I never did any Uchu decks on my channel, despite me being an Uchu main, is just because there wasn't really much variance with Uchu, so deck builds didn't really carry over, and there's not much variety. The only thing you can probably get from them is like Dream Team decks, but I just didn't really feel like those were like worth posting in my opinion. But we're gonna go ahead and kind of just break down the list. I do think Nova's very strong. I do think Uchu has gotten a lot better with set three, and so I do feel more comfortable posting lists about Uchu now. So let's go to move on to the deck list here. For our Elrig deck, we're running the Draw 2 Tamago, the Enter Charge 2 Crescendo. These are very obvious. They're just very good consistency tools. We're running Jet Stick and then Decapo. Jet Stick is just free, taps on something, you pay one, draw two. And then Decapo is effectively pay three to stop two damage. Once again, just want cost efficiency. With Uchu, you do want to grow as fast as possible to turn on your once per game and have it at full effect. So that's pretty much why we're running the most cost effective ones we can choose from. And then for our pieces, we're running Hop and I and then Song of Wheatcross. The other option is End of Turn. We'll talk a little bit more on that later, but I'll explain my reasonings why I choose Song of Wheatcross. As for the level ones, for the non triggers, we're running 4 Zhao, 4 Triumph, 4 Dementor, 4 Fenrir, 4 Kome or Zhugliang. Um, these are just kind of obvious. You do want to max out on these. I think these are the best way. Dementor and Zhugliang are your best ways to damage push. So you want to be capping out. And then Fenrir is a little weird. We'll talk a little bit more on this, why it's being played in this list, aside from it just being the Uchu specific level 3. But there's a little bit more reasoning to it. Yeah. But as for triggers, 4 Servant, 4 Random Drain, 4 Typo, 4 Folklore, 4 Ishimaru. Once again, we'll talk a little bit more about these later. Um, but yeah, these are like two of the very powerful white signals that had came out um, in this most recent set. So let's go ahead and talk about Nova herself. She has an on play to bounce anything. When she attacks, if you have 5 under her, you get to stack a Guardian from your trash to the top of your deck, or Servant, sorry. Um, and if you have 7 or more, you get to draw a card, and then it has the once per game to suck up the cards underneath your Sistel rigs. You want to be turning this on as fast as possible. You want to be shielding every single turn, pretty much making it so your opponent will never get off an Elric attack ever. And overall, like because you're in white, you do get access to a lot of better cards. So yeah, on play removal is good. Recycling Servants is very strong. Um, it's the first possible competitive control deck. I know some people might feel like um, Musica is control, but it's not. And as far as like Tamago Center went, never did like well. And so I think this is like the first like competitive control deck. You have to mulligan aggressively for Servant. This is kind of a caveat of the deck. I feel like if you don't find the Servants in the first 2 turns, you're probably losing. Still lacks consistent damage push. You do get good damage push in this deck with restanding your Elrig with Kome or Zhugliang, but it still lacks like the open board deal 4 damage kind of thing. And it's always playing for a longer game, so that's why like it's like in that control variant. And last but not least, the team piece is pretty underwhelming. Hoppenai is not the greatest card ever, but it's like very okay. Um, but you kind of do have to run it just because you are running the team based deck. But we'll talk a little bit more on options that you can out of Hoppenai, because Hoppenai, like I said, is just not the greatest card. It's just like okay. So let's go ahead and talk about what's new. We have Kome, Ishikishimaru, and Typo. Kome has the ability whenever your white Elric attacks, you can pay a total of 2 and then rest 2 of your Signy, and then you can restand it and loses its effects. This is how you're dealing damage without removal, pretty much. You're going to just be making multiple Elric attacks. And then her second ability is if your opponent would vanish this, you could pay 3 total and bring her back from the ender zone onto the field rested. This card is like exceptionally strong. Giving away the damage push for white is really good. Um, you'll probably be seeing this card more in like pretty much in every white deck. Just giving that extra attack is like really strong. Even though it does negate the abilities, which can benefit or not benefit you, just depending on what you're playing. But overall, it's like an insane card. Um, Next, we have Ishikishimaru. During your opponent's turn, it gets plus 4 to power, and then once per turn, when another signal on your field is placed, you get to scry 1 basically. So look at the top card and either keep it there or put it on the bottom. And then it has the life first to check 3, add it to hand, or to summon it to the field. Once again, this card is like insanely strong. The scry 1 is very good for consistency, and then being at 12k on your opponent's turn means you can't be Deafening Inferno, which is like very good. And the life first is very strong, a very common white life first trigger, but Still good overall. This card just for a defensive Signy is like pretty much all you want. And the next we have Typo. During your opponent's turn, if you have a level 1 Signy in your enter zone, this gets plus 3 or 4K, so it's a 7K wall. Once again, just very defensible and adds more white to the deck. And then having 7K walls on level 1 just means you can't be Romeld, and they would be like forced to use something like a Deafening Inferno. And then it has a target Signy can't attack, and then you get to draw a card for a life burst. Once again, another white life burst that's very common. So very good. These two combined have very good triggers, and they're just very good defensive Signy. So that's why we choose to play them at max copies as well. So next we have Dementor. Harmony for 1 blue Elrig at the beginning of your attack phase. If you have 3 different colors on your field, um, you can and this card is up. You can pay a green and a white, and if you do, target Signy on your field gets Lancer. And then when one of your other Signy is vanished during your turn, you get to enter charge 1. So next up, we're going to talk about the small little blue package we have here. These are all 4 ofs. 4 Folklore. This card's very strong. Um, Historically, has been very good. Just down 2, draw 1, pretty much ending your opponent's Signy attack phase. I'm a very strong advocate for the for Folklore and the new clones for Folklore. So I do think this card's very strong. For random drain, we are an Uchu, so we do get the max benefits out of this. This can sometimes snipe out your opponent's servants, and that's kind of what the intended use is, along with the 4 Fenrir that can freeze 2, and then at the start of your opponent's attack phase, this make them discard 1. We kind of have like this mini discard package in, and I mean, if they Xeno, it's not really the end of the world, because if they Xeno off of just like a single random drain, then you're kind of putting yourself in a position to be able to do something like Fenrir plus random drain plus Hop and I to be able to like discard their hand like a turn after. And plus random drain trigger is like very decent overall too. So I do think like the combination of these cards work fairly well into this next like strategy of just being defensive. And so that's pretty much the reason why we're on them. So let's go ahead and talk about the optional pieces. So we have Great Reversal, End of Turns, Cluster, and then Burning Curiosity. Great Reversal. So this is an option I would actually consider taking out over Hop and I, because like I said, Hop and I is fairly low impact, and with something like Great Reversal, you do get the option to be able to play over Hop and I. Even though that does sound like a little crazy, but just being able to open 2 lanes is a very large thing for a blue deck, and even at the cost of 5, it still can be worth it. And you have 4 Fenrirs to be able to turn it on, so it is completely possible to use. I don't think it's optimal, but I think it's a possibility that I haven't tested, so I wanted to mention it here. End of turn is probably the most common used in this deck that I've seen from the JP list. Has the ability to negate a spell or salvage 1. This just gives you some minor consistency with the salvage selectivity, and then the disruption with the spell negate. I do think this is a very strong option to play in this deck, but I'm just personally not playing because, like I said, my whole game plan is to find that servant on turn 0. But I think this is like a very good option as well. For Xenocluster, I honestly don't think you need this, because you're not really starving for enter in this deck. You're pretty much paying out on like turn 2/turn 3, and so I don't really feel like it's really necessary. And you're making consistent card advantage each turn for the draw 1. But I mean, if the meta is heavy on something like disruption like this, then I do think that obviously you should play it. But that can be pretty much said for Xenocluster in like every context. So Burning Curiosity has an ability to exceed 4 if you want to, which is putting 4 cards from underneath your Elrigs into the trash. Vanish target Signy, and if you pay the exceed 4, you get to exclude it from the game. So why consider this when it goes against our game plan? Well, to look at it, you pretty much don't want to ever be paying the exceed 4 costs, unless there are some scenarios where it can come up. Overall, it's just pay 1, remove something. And like I said, for a control deck, that's a very large rarity to be able to do, and that comes at a premium with this kind of piece. And so I do think this is like a decent option, and a very considerable one at that. But I haven't done enough testing to say whether it's better than the other 2 options that I think are better. But I did want to put it up there because it is, like I said, just pay 1 removal is very good because it removes anything. And next, we're going to move on to the optional Signy. So we have Penlight. At the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, you can target one of your opponent's Elrigs, and then they have to pay 2 in order to attack. And then at the end of your turn, if you play a spell, this Signy gets Shadow Signy. And then it has the Arc Wind life first to either bounce something or draw a card. Penlight is very good for disruption, and get something like MC Lion. This is like a very good card, and something like Karana too, maybe. But overall, like I mean, just being able to stop like an Elrig attack or putting like attacks on it is really good. This card's like very strong. But I just didn't find the space for it in this list, but I do think it's a very viable option. So next we have Shiran Akuji. This gets plus 1k power for every difference in card that you have for your opponent. So this thing can be pretty high since you are a discard deck. And then at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, if you have 6 cards, you get to draw a card. So pretty much if you are very ahead, you get to draw another card. And then it has an act ability to pay 2 white, discard 2, and then put target signet on your opponent's field into their trash. That's pretty much why I think this is a considerable option, just because it's more removal. Um, and I haven't experimented with it, but I wanted to mention it. So next we have Armlight and Akafuku. These are basically the same thing as Folklore, but for both white and green, respectively. They both stop 2 other Signy attacks, pretty much. Armlight being able to make it so they can't attack, and then you draw a card, and then Akafuku saying that you can't be damaged by level 3 or less Signy, and also Enter charges you 1. These are very decent options if you're not playing a more like blue splash build. Maybe if you're like going more in green, you can play Akafuku, or if you just want to be pure white, you can be on Armlight, which I think these are both viable options. The last one is cheating. Has an on enter. If it's in the if you play it in the center, you get to enter charge 1. This just helps with a little bit more green consistency and helps you with some enter. I personally just didn't put it in the list because I do want more copies of Dementor and I want to be maxing out on it, and that was like the slot I had to consider over it. So wrapping up with the list here, once again, just show again, we're running pretty much 4 of everything. We want to see our triumphs, our Giles, our typos on turn 1. We want to see our Ishikishimaros on turn 2, and then we want to see our at least 2 of our level 3s by turn 3. We are aggressively growing, so we are going to have like a limit of 7 constantly. And once again for the pieces, playing Song or Wecross just for consistency. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the list. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm going to be posting some more set 3 stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.